Thank y'all for coming. This is the second session in the series of the Archetypical Mind. And the first session was background to kind of give you a recap of where we are coming up to an archetypical mind discussion. This is intended to be an introduction to the archetypical mind. And the next time I anticipate we'll get into the specifics of going through each individual archetype. Probably will take a session per archetype. Okay? And we use the word archetype a lot. The archetypical mind is a design that is composed of 22 archetypes, each of which is a separate design. We talked about also last time the archetypes of the creator that all of this is based upon. And we have 9 archetypes in our octave, which is our basic design. And there's an infinite number of different octaves, all of which are different. We have the 5 inherent characteristics of the Creator, and each of these inherent characteristics has a name, which we didn't discuss last time. Love, the inherent characteristic of love, is Ra, R-A. And those of you that are familiar with the Ra material or the Law of One material, the Ra that delivered that or was channeled is the aspect of the Creator that is love. Okay? Awareness is Sa, S-A. Wisdom is Law, L-A. Unity is Yah. You know, those of you that are familiar with the biblical references to Yahweh, what they're referring to is actually Yah. The Ra of Egyptian fame is that Ra. We are actually in a law territory, but a raw experience. In other words, Earth is a raw experiment, but our sun, our solar system, is headquarters for law, wisdom. The 5th is stillness, which is Ka. All the other archetypes are distortions of these 5 inherent characteristics of the Creator. And in our experience, in the Earth, in our solar system experience, the 4 distortions, one is free will, which is named Melchizedek. Melchizedek, free will, is also the 8th density. It is the first distortion. All of creation is within the archetype of free will, or Melchizedek. If it is outside of Melchizedek, outside of 8th density, then it is not part of creation. Separation, which is Ta, which is a distortion of unity, Yah. Movement, which is Da, D-A, which is a distortion of stillness, or Ka. And then unconsciousness, which is Lucifer. And Lucifer has a lot of religious and biblical references. It has nothing to do with evil or anything of that. Lucifer is actually means light bringer, light bearer. And initially, in the archetypical mind, it occludes that. But because of its participation in the archetypical mind, it greatly accelerates our capacity for evolution and advancements. So these are the 9 archetypes and the 9 names of the archetypes that participate in our experience. Every solar system, just to briefly review, every solar system in our octave will have an archetypical mind composed of these 9 archetypes in some relationship, one or the other. And each archetypical mind is a design to vary the experiences available to the creator. Now, these design the archetypical mind, but an inherent character, or a basic necessity for creating experience is also the creation of what are called timelines. Timelines are the plays that we live. Literally, it is a script that has the opportunity for improvisation in that script. When we incarnate, and we're going to get into more detail, when we incarnate, we choose a timeline, and we will live that timeline according to our likes and dislikes, which is the improvisational part. The archetypical mind determines it's the parameters of the video game. It's the stage set. It's the director's direction on how we can play that timeline part. Okay? Everybody get that? Good? Now, when we go through a lifetime, timelines virtually don't change. The archetypical mind does not change, but the archetypical mind serves 3rd density, 4th density, and 5th density. There's not a time that we will be in the experiential densities that we are not in the archetypical mind. That means when we're alive, we're under this same archetypical mind design. When we die and we're in time-space, we're still under the same archetypical mind design. There's not a time while we are in the experiential densities that we are not under the archetypical mind design. We have the opportunity while we're in 3rd density to experience lifetimes in other solar systems to vary our experience. If we do that, then we will temporarily surrender the archetypical mind that we have been functioning under, and we will have to assume the archetypical mind that is prevalent in that solar system.
Is it difficult to surrender your archetypical mind?
You just take it off.
Okay.
But we don't take the archetypical mind with us. So due to the low consciousness of 3rd density, it is not really probable, and I don't know if it's even possible for us to go too far afield with an archetypical mind that's not very similar to ours, because would be a dramatic change. It's dramatic enough to go to different body types and things of that nature to have an experience.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and I think that I just want to clarify, is that, okay, whenever we are in an experiential density, so 3rd, 4th, 5th, we will be under an archetypical mind. But that will change according to our timeline?
No. The archetypical mind does not change. It is constant, but it has flexibility built into it.
So no matter what timeline we're in, we will be under the same
Archetypical mind. All the timeline is the script for the play.
Okay.
And you've got a multitude of different plays going on simultaneously, all with different players, but in the same theater, the same archetypical mind.
Right.
Yeah, the only reason he brought up the other ones is if you left this solar system and went outside of this archetypical mind,
Gotcha.
you would have to put on their archetypical mind.
Gotcha. Okay. That's where I got
Right.
lost.
Okay? Now, can I erase this now? Y'all through with that? Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip the part where we go to first density and second density, and just assume that we are spirit that is entering third density. Okay, before we incarnate, before we begin the evolutionary process in third density, we are spirit. That's all we are. But we are spirit that is consciousness. And if you recall, last time we talked about consciousness is the creator. It is intelligent or intelligent infinity that is imbued with free will. So we think that we are separate from the creator. We are the subject part of the subject-object relationship. The creator remains as the object. And the first thing in creation is injecting free will into a portion of the creator, which causes that portion of the creator to perceive itself as separate. That simple act creates, not only begins creation, but it creates the subject aspect of the creator, which is us. Okay? So we begin to create from that standpoint, from that perspective. So that is consciousness. The part of the creator, the subject part of the creator that perceives itself as separate from the creator is consciousness. So we are consciousness. Everything within the free will envelope is consciousness. And if you understand that the purpose or how the creator is experiencing itself is expanding itself by creating fractals of consciousness. In other words, eighth density is the unobscured, unobstructed creator with free will that perceives itself separate from the creator. Okay? Seventh density, which is created by eighth density, is nothing more than the delineation of the five inherent characteristics: love, unity, awareness, stillness, and unity. Is that five, or did I repeat one? Love, unity, awareness, wisdom,
And stillness.
and stillness. Okay, that is seventh density. Now, there is no movement in seventh density. There is no space in seventh density. There is no physicality to seventh density. Nor is there in eighth density. Eighth density is simply a concept, an intelligent concept, but it has individuality to it. Seventh density is the beginning of the fractalization. And there are essentially 4 layers that coincide with the coding that begins, in our experience, on the other end of the scale all the way down to first density. So there are essentially 4 layers in seventh density in 5 categories. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Love, unity, wisdom, stillness, and awareness. Okay, and according to the coding, which we call DNA, one, 2, 3, 4. There's a stratification of 4 layers. In other words, this is the layer right before it merges back into total unity with eighth density. And this has, as we would perceive it, 64, 62, 60, and 58. And these, as we perceive it, again, this is coding. We perceive this to be DNA. 58 strands of DNA activated, 60, 62, and up to 64, which is it. That's the end of it. Okay, and this is 7th density. There is no physicality. There is a body, but it's a conceptual body. There's no physicality, there's no space, and there's no movement in 7th density. How 7th density creates or participates is they essentially hold concepts. And they also create 6th density. Now 6th density is the density of unity. It is the level of our higher self. It is where the bulk of creation is designed and actually implemented. They're the builders and the managers of creation. And 6th density differs from 7th density in that it is fractalized even further and begins at 56. In other words, the top of 6th density is 56 strands of coding down from the 58. So it begins up here at 56 strands of coding. Now 6th density has physicality to it. Not a lot, but it has physicality to it. And by not a lot, I mean it is light. And my higher self has given me the image of this essentially being 6th density. It would be perceived by us to be unformed. 7th density participates in this from a position. And if you can imagine this as a huge amber-colored membrane that is very light, but it is full of movement. If you can imagine a baby in an amber womb before birth, that's the image that I'm trying to project here. Okay, this is 6th density, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 1st, and 2nd densities, all contained within this amber membrane. 7th density will hold a position. And by hold a position, I mean an entity that is in 7th density will literally hold a position in view from here. Now there is no physicality. Huh?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Okay, 7th density holds a position, and by position, they are talking about the racial mind that we talked about. Their perspective according to where they are. They will observe and participate according to a position. But there's no physicality to 7th density. There is physicality in 6th density and down. 6th density is a fractal of 7th density. They have literally stepped down access to consciousness, so that it's like you put a governor on your car, and the motor in your car has the capacity without the governor to go as fast as you want it to, but because there's a governor on it, on your carburetor or whatever, it will only go so fast.
70 is outside the game, observing the game.
70 is outside of the game, observing the game from a position. And that position is important because that's the diversity of 7th density. Okay? Now 6th density is both inside and outside of this amber membrane. In 6th density, all polarity is resolved, which means very simply there's, among other things, there's no difference between being incarnate and not incarnate. That's a polarity that is resolved in 6th density. And so they are participating both inside and outside at their level of consciousness. They don't become 7th density when they move outside of it. But they're outside of it, participating from their level of consciousness. Okay? Now, physicality in 6th density is at their discretion. In other words, if they want to, there's no reason for 6th density to appear in any physical or have any physicality to it whatsoever. No space, no location, none of that. They are essentially able to function purely on concept, as is 7th and 8th density. Those are the creator densities. They do all the creation.
So they can incarnate or not incarnate.
Yep. There's no distinction for them. Now, 6th density creates the experiential densities. Experiential densities are 5th density, 4th, and 3rd. The big difference, this is where creation takes place. It's where it's experienced. We are in 3rd density. The 4th density and 5th density are are within the archetypical mind. These 3 densities are within the archetypical mind. 1st density and 2nd density is not within the archetypical mind, nor is 6, 7, and 8. 6th density actually designs the archetypical mind that we experience. 3rd density by far is the most intense of the densities. It is completely within the archetypical mind. In the elementary stages of the archetypical mind, the progression through the archetypical mind or through evolution takes place in 3rd density, and that's where we've been mired for such a long period of time. But what happens in 3rd density, as far as the mind, body, spirit, is essential. Because we begin 3rd density as just spirit. Let's just say, let's pretend that we didn't go to 1st density and 2nd density to learn how to be physical. We were just plopped down in the middle of, or at the beginning of 3rd density, which can happen. Our mind, our body, and spirit is created by the archetypical mind at the beginning of 3rd density. We begin as spirit. There's no distinction between our spirit and our higher self's spirit. In other words, we begin at 6th density. Our higher self literally invests a portion of its / the Creator's energy in order to segregate us as an individual. Now that spirit has 6th density consciousness. In order for us to participate in 3rd density, then that has to be scaled down. In other words, additional governors are put upon us. And it is from this scaled down to 3rd density that we begin.
And you said the 6D invests a portion of its consciousness to create the entity in the 3rd, to start the process of the 3D experience.
Yeah. Now, originally, they also invested fourth and fifth. In other words, before we had a system going, or a flow, before there was a soul stream, fifth and fourth was also created simultaneously by simply scaling down the level of consciousness.
Okay, well, let me backtrack just for a second. I mean, we've talked before about the evolution of consciousness, and we've talked about, I understand the archetypical mind is associated, it's like the game plan of the game. It's like the overlapping process of the game. And that's why you only have it associated with 3 and 4 and 5. But if you're also learning and growing from first, the consciousness is also learning in first and second, is 6D grabbing a portion of what's in first and second in addition to what it has to create 3D? Or is it, why is there even a bother for the first and second then, if that's the case, that they're pulling a part of themselves to start 3D?
There is a balance,
Okay.
and there is learning to be had in first and second density. Essentially, first and second density, to grossly summarize, is learning to be physical and learning to be social. So, for example, in my experience, I was in first density and just taken out of first density and began third density. In other words, I skipped second density.
So 6D pulled from first density to start, and then added consciousness and started you at 3D.
It's all consciousness, so
Well,
there's no adding of consciousness. It's just, yeah, if you think of it like a motor, the spirit is the one infinite creator. So it's just a matter of perception, the governors, to scale it down to first or second density or third or wherever. Okay? And that's what the coding is, that we call DNA. That's what the coding does. When the coding is scaled down to 2 strands activated, you're going to be in first density. If all of a sudden, your higher self comes in and said, I need you in first density, and so let's go, and they scale you down to 2 strands of DNA activated, regardless of where you are today, regardless of what you know, your consciousness is going to be of a first density level.
And the reason I was wanting to clarify is because you had said invests a portion of, and I wasn't sure if that was an investing in a portion of from the 6D aspect of it, or investing a portion of scooping down and getting some from first and second.
It's going to be from the 6th density aspect, because if you remember, the whole purpose is variety of experience. Okay, so the 5 inherent characteristics each divide according to the racial mind, the influences of that predisposition. And so the importance is that Raw, for example, invest the energy of Raw that is flavored with their racial mind. Okay? That's how it creates the uniqueness of all of these experiences.
So that's the investing.
That's the investing.
Okay.
Okay? But it all comes out of the one big pot, the one infinite creator. So the same thing is happening for the other 5, or the other 4, all 5 inherent characteristics of how they flavor the consciousness that's invested into evolution. Okay? So we begin as spirit that is scaled down to 3rd density. And the system is set up that if you scale down the coding, regardless of where you were before, you're going to fall into that line of level of consciousness. In other words, you're not going to have 26 strands of DNA activated and be in 2nd density.
Which is why when a wanderer comes back, they
Scale them down.
Right, they scale them down, but yet they still kind of wonder, even though they're at the 3D consciousness level, they, like we've talked about, there's a lot of homeless or
Right.
or very misunderstood, because it's like they're looking for what they, I guess, vaguely
Feel.
remember. Or
It's all
feel.
feeling.
What they vaguely remember feeling?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Exactly so.
And they're struggling with the scale down.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where we begin. We begin as spirit that is scaled down to third density. Okay? In order to broaden the experience, now understand that this has mind also. This has a mind because it is the creator that perceives itself as separate. Is scaled down to third density. So this already has a mind. This already perceives of itself as separate from the creator.
Spirit does.
Yeah. Within creation, if it's within creation, it perceives itself as separate from the creator.
But it's a very basic.
Very basic. It has a mind. Because a mind is nothing more than the consciousness that perceives itself as separate. Which creates this. The mind is a creation of spirit. The mind, as we perceive the mind, is created by the archetypical mind. The body is created by the mind. Spirit creates the mind, mind creates the body. The body does not have a mind. The body is a mirror. It is a reflection of the level of balance of the spirit in the body. I mean, the spirit in the mind.
I'm sorry, say that again. It's a reflection of.
The balance, degree of balance between spirit and mind. So the body is not intelligent. It doesn't have a mind. It's not intelligent. Now this body, we're going to, as we get into the archetypes, we'll see is much more than the body that we perceive. It is everything that is physical. Anything that is physical. Okay?
So I guess the definition of an intelligence is different in terms of the body not being intelligent.
Body does not have its own intelligence. Okay? Okay, any questions?
So the body doesn't have its own intelligence, yet it can still operate without the spirit.
Mm-mm. Body cannot operate without the spirit.
Well, like we were talking about with regard to a body, I mean, not for a long period of time, but there are things that will continue to operate even after the spirit is gone.
Well,
Or is that a different type of
that's a
intelligence?
good point. And we haven't really gotten into the body yet. The body that I think that you're talking about is not the body that I'm talking about.
Oh, okay, all right,
I think what you're talking about is the body we see.
okay.
Okay, the body we see is just the hologram that goes with the timeline that we're living.
Okay.
Okay, we don't. You're right that we do not. The hologram will go on whether it's occupied by a spirit or not.
Right.
But there's no experience being gained for the creator.
No.
It's just filling a place on the stage, so that the troupe looks like the whole troupe's out there acting, but really maybe only one or two actors, real actors, are out there, and the rest of it are just statues that you can tell Santa Claus is there. Yeah, okay. And you act around Santa Claus. So this body that I'm talking about is one of 7 bodies that we have, that each body will coincide with the level of consciousness. In other words, this is where the coding, the DNA, really implements that. So in each body coincides with a chakra. So our first density body will be red. Our second density body will be orange. The body that we have now is yellow. The body of fourth density is green. And the bodies, the transitional children that are in a transitional body are actually partially yellow and partially green.
Are these what they refer to as the subtle bodies? Or is that something else?
Well, I don't know who they are, but these are our real bodies. These are our enduring bodies that will be with us through through seventh density. But seventh density has no physicality to it, and sixth density is just light.
So our enduring bodies do not have intelligence.
Right. And the bodies that are part of the hologram certainly don't have intelligence.
But because the bodies that you're talking to are part and parcel with the chakras, correct? Then that is why it manifests in the, what did you call it, body?
Enduring bodies?
That means the physical one, the
No.
hologram?
Now, the physical body is part of the hologram.
Right, so it actually affects the hologram. The chakras actually affect the hologram.
They don't affect the hologram. The hologram, don't put a lot of importance on the hologram other than the fact that that's the script and the stage set that you're playing now.
It's part of the game.
Yeah.
It's the game body.
Yeah, you understand that. I'm thinking as far as illness and it manifesting, it's because of the chakra.
It manifests in the enduring body as well as, shows itself in the hologram.
Yeah, so it is tied to the hologram is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever thought to separate the two bodies, to think about the bodies separately, so this is interesting.
When you die, it appears that the hologram body dies, your enduring body is fine, not affected by your departure from incarnation at all.
Oh, so that's why you're saying it's not really affected, but it is somewhat of a reflection while the spirit is inhabiting
Yes.
it. Okay.
But the illness is nothing more than a reflection of the degree of balance of the body and, of the mind and spirit. We literally choose illness with every thought that we process.
So you're saying that it's of the mind and the spirit and it has nothing to do then with the, because that's
The body is the
of the
reflection.
subtle bodies. Yes.
That's the reflection of the mind and the spirit.
Okay.
Okay? Just a preview into the workings, the archetypical mind has 22 archetypes. Okay, that is our design. There are others that only have 10 archetypes. But the mind, body, and spirit are three major categories of the archetypical mind. And it's written as a mind, body, spirit on purpose. Because, and this may be premature to get here, the mind is the decider. It's the George Bush of our incarnate experience. It's the decider. Every thought enters the mind. Every thought will go up okay. 7 categories. The Melchizedek free will serves all of these, but the design of the archetypical mind is divided into 7 categories for the mind, 7 for the body, and 7 for the spirit. A thought is processed through all of the archetypes. every thought goes through every archetype within the archetypical mind. The mind takes the thought in and gives both the body and the spirit the opportunity to comment, to influence the decisions that the mind makes about the thought. While we remain in low consciousness, and this serves third through fifth density. So there has to be great flexibility in how each archetype serves a thought. Every thought enters the first step on the mind category. The mind category will literally poll both the body and the spirit for input, for comments. While we remain in low consciousness, while we remain attached to the physical, it will only accept input from the body. Even though it's also asking the spirit for input, the spirit essentially remains dormant. Not because it's not commenting, but because the mind is not recognizing it. Because the low consciousness recognizes the attachment to the physical. While we remain in low consciousness, we're just, you can just say hypothetically, you can, here's the thought, you can buy a new Cadillac, or you can surrender that Cadillac and have faith in creation, faith in the Creator. And that's an extreme. Well, in low consciousness, the mind is going to, I'm taking the Cadillac. So, okay, Spirit, thanks for your input, but not now. So you get the new Cadillac. Or something as simple as this, you can do this, it physically feels good, or you can wait and raise your consciousness. Well, this feels good, I'll take this now because it's physical. I'm attached to it. You can fear death because everything is physical. Okay, well, I'll fear that. No, I don't want to have faith. That's too mysterious. What low consciousness does is it compels us to remain scientific. It compels us to accept only what we can bring in with our tactile senses. We cannot release that in order to benefit from the experience, which is the enduring, eternal response. This is pain and suffering being attached to the physical. This is liberation of consciousness and surrender of pain and suffering. But we can't see that. We have to have faith at this level of consciousness. So we stay with the Cadillac.
It's interesting to me, so you're saying that in low consciousness we can only receive input from, we receive the information through the mind and it only can receive really input from the body?
It only recognizes.
Oh, it only recognizes input from the body.
This is available, but it doesn't recognize it.
Okay, so, which is interesting because if the body is not intelligent, how is it receiving anything from the body?
The mind's not real intelligent at this stage either.
Well, I mean...
This is, the body is all sensory input. And I can have comfort in sensory input, even though it hurts, even though it doesn't feel good, I know it's there.
So you're really talking about the physical hologram body that has only sensory input but not intelligence.
Well, yes and no. There's not that much of a distinction. Literally, the hologram is a hologram. What is actually feeling is the enduring body.
Oh. Okay.
We perceive there to be a difference because we can't recognize the enduring body. We're living in the hologram. So all we see is the hologram. But it's the tactile sensory input is the enduring body that's actually doing that.
So you're saying that the body, so and when you mean intelligence, you mean it doesn't have consciousness, but it does have a certain sense of intelligence in the form of being able to receive sensory.
It's a transmitter. It's a piece of machinery. If there's nothing to receive, if you put a sensor into molten lava to see how hot it is, if there's nothing connected to the sensor to tell you how hot it is, it just melts.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So it's only a receiver. That's why it cannot create, it cannot attract, it only receives.
But the enduring body is what's feeling it.
When the
Yeah.
spirit leaves the body, when we die, physically die, that's what the body is. The body is just
Yeah.
a mass.
Meets.
Can't function without the computer hooked to it.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused because earlier you said that the mind will pull the body and the spirit for every thought.
Mhm.
But then you said it's only actually receiving information from the body because it
It's
cannot
only recognizing.
only recognizing.
And it's recognizing from the enduring body. I mean,
Yeah, don't get hung up on the enduring body and the hologram body, because we can't perceive the difference.
okay.
I mean, if you hold your hologram hand out there to touch something, it's really your enduring body that is feeling that, but you don't know that. But there is a distinction. Your enduring body, when you die, when you go to sleep at night, your hologram body is there and your physical body is resting, but your spirit is not there.
Okay,
The sensory.
well then what does it think it's polling when it's polling the body and the spirit? What is it? I mean, if it can't recognize the spirit, what does it think it's
It
polling?
can recognize it, and it chooses not to. It chooses to remain attached to
Oh.
the physical.
It's too enamored by the
It's
physical.
its consciousness, its intelligence is too low.
So while remaining in lower consciousness, the mind only chooses to recognize. That's.
Is there maybe significance in the way that's lined up? I mean, mind, body, spirit, where it, I mean, is the body, I'm looking at that chart you have behind you,
Mhm.
where the body is really physically blocking, I'm just thinking linearly, of course, but it's blocking the spirit. So as long as that you can't see through the illusion of the body or the limitation of the body, you're never going to see the spirit. Is that one way to see it?
Yes, that is, because that is the design, and it's the consciousness level that prohibits your ability to access the spirit. As long as we remain unconscious, we will remain attached to the physical and not be able to recognize the spirit. That is the process of evolution. As we raise our consciousness and surrender our attachment to the physical, we begin to be able to recognize the spirit. And if you remember, we've talked about the three stages of these three phases of evolution. The first phase is we experience what we don't like. This right here, this little tandem, the mind keeps pulling the body and the spirit, ignoring the spirit and only recognizing the body. We continue to get what we don't like. It's transient, it has pain and suffering with it, but this is all we know, so we stay with it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still hung up on the fact that, I mean, even if we think that we are recognizing the spirit, we're not? Is that what?
Well, there is
It's
a
only a
transitional
perception?
period. Yeah, each of these archetypes has a specific characteristic. And this will become evident to you when we can get into the individual archetypes and explain those. But yes, we think that we are polling the spirit, but we're ignoring the spirit. And this is exactly the same thing. And psychology has run numerous test primarily with children, but with adults too, to determine who can forego immediate pleasure for future gain.
Okay.
Okay? And low consciousness people cannot forego immediate pleasure for future gain. This is immediate pleasure, they think. This is long-term gain. This is attachment to the physical. This unattachment to the physical doesn't go away at the end of third density. It is something we will continue to work on. When you get to fifth density, you're under the same archetypical mind, but the degree of influence, big difference. We were talking about the difference between service to self and service to others earlier. Service to others has no problem. That, physical, it's just, something I need to get me there. Service to self remains attached and never recognizes the spirit. They enhance their attachment. Their whole focus is domination and subjugation because they're attached to the physical. You can't dominate and subjugate in the spirit. There's nothing to dominate. There's nothing to subjugate. Okay?
But there are very few people who have, in the third density experience, been able to recognize spirit.
We all begin to recognize spirit. You don't make progress until you recognize spirit.
But I mean, like Hawkins, for instance, people who have high consciousness while in the third density experience have been able to connect with spirit.
Yeah, well, absolutely. We all connect with spirit. I mean, that's what we try to work on in here, is connecting to spirit, to move beyond the attachment. All of Eckhart Tolle's teachings are to unattach from the physical. All of that. I mean, there are tremendous numbers of teachings going back thousands of years saying unattach from the physical and pay attention to the spiritual.
Can't say we've never been told before.
And it's over and over and over. Hey, I'm here again. Okay?
I guess sometimes where it's hard to, for people to wrap their brain around is the fact that, is that we fluctuate. That we have an overall consciousness level, but we find ourselves in moments where we're in lower consciousness or we're in higher consciousness. Even if if we average out, a little higher than the, 20.
It's a process.
We do have our moments of fluctuating, and so we associate when we're listening to you talk about this particular area, we're thinking of moments where we're in lower consciousness versus moments when we're in higher consciousness and we're connecting with the spirit. But anyway.
Well, the body and the spirit have specific functions, and it's a matter of allowing yourself to benefit from that function. Okay? In lower consciousness, the mind and the body is all we're going to recognize. And we can stay there for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. That is experiencing what we don't like. That is the wheel of samsara, as Buddha refers to it. There will be a period of transition where we slip and begin to let some spirit in, and we think, that was pretty good. I might want some more of that. But there's a period of transition because we're still attached to the physical, but we're lessening that. This is a scale. As this side goes up, this side's got to go down until we recognize only the spirit, only what we like. But yeah, there's a long period of transition in there. Really, fourth density is a period of transition. But we got to start the process in third density. In third density, we've got to raise our consciousness to the threshold level of 400 on Hawkins' scale. Choose service to others. If we choose service to self, then we're not worried about spirit. I mean, we're going the other way. So we choose to stay in pain and suffering. And then fifth density, again, we're finishing up, unattaching from the physical, going only for the spiritual. And the next stage is transition into sixth density, which is unity.
With the mind is ego.
Mind is separation. We create an ego mind in third density. And one of the archetypes of the archetypical mind actually creates the ego mind.
One of the archetypes of the
Within the archetypical mind creates the ego mind.
The ego mind. So the mind that you're talking to now is more than what is if the mind that you're referring to now below the chart.
Mm-hmm.
It is, what is it?
You can say that this is mind because it is consciousness that perceives, it is intelligence, it is consciousness that perceives itself as separate from the Creator. This is this with a double dose of separation.
Mind is spirit with a double dose of separation.
Yeah. Still intelligent. But this is your first shot at the celestial bar of whiskey. This is your second shot. That's all mind is. It is consciousness with an extra dose of separation, of free will. Free will is separation. Same thing. Perception of separation. And again, this is one created by one of the archetypes.
So we're not specifically talking about ego now. So the mind doesn't pull the mind will pull the body and the spirit only. The mind can't pull the mind.
Yes, but this is ego.
So that is ego.
It is ego. Ego in mind, which is spirit with a double dose of separation, is ego.
Okay, so spirit is mind, but that mind is ego because it's a double dose of separation from spirit.
Yeah.
So the ego, we're receiving input from the ego all of the time.
That's all that's our decider. And if you think about the purpose of creation, it's so that the Creator might know itself through experience. The more we perceive ourselves as separate, the more unique is going to be the choices, the decisions we make for each experience. Okay? Now, why this happens? Why all of this big Megillah? Not the same chart. Okay, imagine that you are the Creator, that you are sixth density, okay, and your task, your assigned task, is to explore new territory of the Creator. All that you have to work with is concept of consciousness. So you have to essentially create a grid system of the Creator in order to be able to explore and keep track of what you have explored and what you have yet to explore from a different perspective.
Oh, is this the alignment chart?
Alignment chart?
Yeah.
The
You
higher
show whether
self.
you're aligned with her.
Yeah.
Were you jumping ahead?
Yes, she is. She is.
Just labeling.
Okay, and this is nothing more than the Creator. You have one of these, you have a vast, infinite division of segment or segmentation of the creator at a third density level. And you have one at fourth density level and one at fifth density level. Of course, if you're talking about the same system, then the fourth and fifth density are essentially going to be like differences in dimensions. So it'll be the same chart, but fourth density will be at this level and fifth density out here. So it's three density perspective of the same experience. In order to explore that, you need timelines. Which are nothing more, the experiences are inconsequential. What is important is the emotions, the interpretations that are evoked by the events, the scenarios of a timeline. In order to explore this quadrant right here, and let's just say hypothetically that this is one person, this is an individual, and you need to explore that from every possibility. So you will write scenarios, which are timelines, for that person to experience emotions. Doesn't matter what they think or what great conclusions. Already know all that. Creator knows all that. What the Creator can't do without your assistance is experiencing that by experiencing the emotions. So that must be explored from every possibility. In other words, that quadrant must be explored from the female perspective of third density. Must be explored from the male perspective of third density. And every other possibility or combination of being that can be altered physically or whatever.
Okay, so 60 is sitting around checking off or creating these timelines and then checking off which ones are being
Productive.
experienced, and I guess maybe even taking notes on how they were experienced.
That's called the Akashic record. Every experience that a person has is recorded.
And how do you spell Akashic?
Akashic.
AKASHIC.
I see.
I see.
Say that.
AKASHIC.
So every possibility of experience is explored for each section. And that's what each individual person is one of these little squares.
Oh, so that's, each square is a person,
Each square is a person.
not an experience.
Not a single experience. No, each square is a person, intended to be a person. And through providing that person with a variety of different experiences via the timelines, they will explore that territory. But just one person does not necessarily explore that territory.
So, column would be an experience, and a row would be, I'm really trying to wrap my head around that graph.
This is a lifetime set. This square is a lifetime.
Okay, but yeah, so they create one of those for each lifetime?
Well, a person
A
lives
graph?
a lifetime. Yeah, the graph is here.
But
We're mapping this territory.
But we have more than one experience. I mean, we have multiple
Yeah,
experiences.
and it's all recorded for this square. All those experiences explore the same territory. You are a mind-body spirit, which makes you a territory.
We only get one box. I'm still having trouble with we only get one box.
You only get one box for a lifetime. Yeah, for a lifetime in the course, but you're going to have the average human has had over 3,900 lifetimes.
But what I mean is, you get each person, each of us has gone through umpteen thousand experiences just within this lifetime.
And it's
Yeah.
all within the
And we only get one box?
For a lifetime, yeah.
That just,
Well, see, that's-
that only represents
That's only
that's
a
a
concept for
timeline,
territory.
that's a timeline of.
Okay, well, in my concept, there would be multiple boxes.
Well, there
We'll
are.
imagine
He's only
multiple
showing you a
boxes
slice.
within that one box.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll just imagine that.
He's just showing you a 3D slice, that's all.
Well, see, that's what I was kind of wondering too, because you said we jump timelines, which I would think means we would kind of be going to different boxes. If we jump
Third
different
density
timelines.
beings do not jump timelines.
This is a
Third
3D
density beings stay on the same timeline
Okay.
for a lifetime.
Okay.
They may only live a partial life because the timelines are the script.
Mhm.
So you only need, say for example, you only need Act 4, Scene 32 for your experiences.
Mhm.
So you only pop into that lifetime for Act 4, Scene 32. The role is written. It's a hologram, so it continues. You just fill the shoes of the actor, do your improvisation for Act 4, Scene 32. You pop out and go to the next lifetime.
Mm.
So when I say the average human has lived 3,900 lifetimes, that doesn't mean they've lived 3,900 whole lifetimes.
No wonder I'm so tired.
Dean,
What?
this is a little bit like the mandala that I was talking about earlier, where like the Buddhist mandala, where you've got all these kind of characters along all sectors of the picture, right? And you kind of live one of those little creations, right? And then, but there's a whole grid of them. I mean, the mandala is not kind of laid out in a grid, but you could imagine it that same way.
Yeah, but it literally is a grid. I mean, it's not as simplistic as this grid.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of like a tapestry.
That's kind of what I'm saying as well.
Well, yes, but that's getting into a different image, because understand the complexity that, I'm depicting this as two-dimensional. Well, it's actually three-dimensional, because the mind, body, spirit, one of the reasons we have mind, body, spirit is because it makes it three-dimensional. And our exploration is not just of this square, but it's three-dimensional out here.
That's, I think, where we're coming up with like a tapestry that,
But tapestry as well as.
well, like.
Okay, well,
Okay,
whatever
apples
imagery
and
works for
oranges,
you.
okay.
Yes.
Whatever imagery works for you, but the point is that each one of these is a territory of the Creator to be explored.
Okay.
And it's not exclusive to you. This is just where you've been assigned now.
Right, you're not the only one who's gonna explore that
Right.
territory.
It's going to be explored from every possible view. In fourth density, this is a third density perspective. We perceive that we live a lifetime and these are my experiences. Well, in reality, this is just an experience that everybody is going to experience before we get out of evolution.
And that's because our awareness expands.
Well, our capacity to do that is because our awareness expands. The reason we do that is because our purpose is to explore the Creator, so that the Creator might know itself by experiencing itself. In order to do that, this is a third density perspective, which is a unique perspective. We will live these again from a fourth density perspective, but not like we are now. I mean, the average time, even though a much longer period is allocated, the average time in fourth density is only 30,000 years. But there are millions of years that are allocated to get out of the experience. We have roughly 75,000 years to try to get out of third density. But really, our purpose in third density is not to completely explore this so much as it is to prepare ourselves to do more intense work. We explore it from a third density perspective. We will explore it again from a fourth density and again from a fifth density. Every experience that you have, your higher self is also simultaneously experiencing. So when you order a chocolate milkshake, your higher self is getting a chocolate milkshake.
Well, I want that perspective of the chocolate. I'd be in bliss, right?
Well, the
Okay.
creator was in bliss yesterday because I had a chocolate.
Okay, I know I've brought this up before, but it's one of those things I have to keep coming back to.
It's okay.
For those that are wanderers and they come back and they have a specific role, but they're not part of the main cast,
Mm-hmm.
so they're part of the ensemble, but they have lines in the play.
Right.
When they're done with those lines, but yet they don't leave the play altogether, does that mean that eventually they're gonna have more lines, or does that
Possibly.
mean, or does that just mean that
Most
they
wanderers,
can do whatever the hell they want to do?
well, yes, well, you can do that anyway. But most wanderers, when you say lines, I assume that you mean that are instrumental into the success of.
Right, instrumental in the
scene.
actual plot of, or scene of the play.
Yes, but most wanderers don't have lines.
Okay.
Most wanderers are here to gain experience and to radiate higher consciousness.
Okay.
And that is just by
So that's why they would live a quote unquote normal
Yeah.
lifespan
Yeah.
or lifetime.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I gotta completely reevaluate.
And that's why our,
This, this awareness has me completely reevaluating.
so our higher selves really we can really tap into that perspective because they really are experiencing that. I mean, they really can give us the input because they really are experiencing
they
that.
know when you think something, what you're thinking. I mean, you sit down and talk to your higher self. You don't have to explain it to them. You can just say, "You know what I was thinking? Okay,
What are you thinking?
Yeah. Where do we go from here?"
I want to know what you think
Are
about
we in
this.
agreement with this, or is that a bad idea?
Well, yeah, well, they're gonna have a different, so would, our higher selves have a different emotional response?
Your higher self is going to be experiences equanimity, which is not an emotion. They've integrated there
Right.
is no polarity at the level of your
So
higher
I don't
self.
understand how they're experiencing what we're experiencing, because it seems like if they have an experience and everything is integrated, then what is there to feel? So I don't,
Our experience is unique. We're the one applying the emotion. They don't have to, if we're feeling angst or anxiety or whatever, they're feeling that but not reacting to it. It's just our experience.
so when you say that they're also having our experiences, what you mean is that they are just observing our
But
experience?
it's feeling too.
Well, you
It's
said they
feeling,
don't
they're just
feel.
not, your perspective is that there has to be an imbalance by virtue of feeling the emotion. We feel the imbalance because of our low level of consciousness. They feel the uniqueness of our experience without imbalance.
Yeah, I can't understand that. That's why I was like, well, they have a different
Well,
emotion, and you're
yeah, we
saying, well, no.
we can't really understand equanimity. We can't really understand no imbalance because our perspective of feeling is imbalanced.
So they are feeling, but they do not have an emotion.
Right.
Okay. But I understand
They don't
that.
contribute their own emotion to the experience. We feel it at a third density level.
So our higher self has a feeling, but it's not an emotion.
It's more like a, It's like
It's additional experience is really all it is, but they're not reacting to it. It's
Yeah.
just a.
Well, that's why I say,
like
what's
an
the difference
absorption.
between them observing it versus
But they're not just observing.
Right, they're
They're
feeling,
feeling.
but it's not an emotion that they're feeling.
They're not going through the highs
They're not
and
feeling their own
lows.
emotion. They're feeling our emotion. But they're not, they don't have to feel the imbalance.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
It's like watching the TV with the sound off. You kind of see everything that's going on and recognize it.
They're like,
And I see it more of, putting the kids in one room and locking the door so they can't get out, and you go relax and enjoy your stuff.
That makes more sense.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
This circle with the grid, is that the membrane that you were talking about before? I mean, not the grid itself, but the circle. Is that?
It's within
Creation.
the membrane. But this is just intended to be, this,
Right.
as if this were the creator. Well, this would be part of the membrane, yeah.
Yes, but
And
so it
just-
doesn't extend beyond six density.
Yeah, this is all, it's all concept, there's no physicality
Right.
to this. So, location, there's no geography, there's none of that. This is just a concept, the concept is transferred into physical perspective so we can understand it.
70 holds the concepts together, 60 manages it.
Yeah, creates and manages, yeah. So this is why we're going through all this, Miguela, is to explore why we perceive ourselves as separate cocooned beings, because it divides all the territory up. But this will be explored from, every possibility, every personality type responsibility.
It's helpful to keep things in perspective. It's helpful in keeping things in perspective as we're going through whatever we're going through.
So the archetypical mind comes in here. And tells us how to experience the timeline. That's what the archetypical mind does. The only experiencer is the mind, body, spirit. The mind, body, spirit is the only thing that changes.
Our archetypical mind governs how we experience.
Well, it's the parameters. It tells us how we can experience the timelines. Now, in the process of creating experiences, okay, you don't have to write a new set of timelines for every solar system. These literally, like you go to the video store and you rent a set of timelines, you take it home to your solar system and plug it into the timeline player,
And then overlap with your archetypical mind.
and they run. And you put, you're going to put it into the archetypical mind, and that's how it's going to display on your screen. So these are reused over and over and over throughout all of creation.
and like exactly?
Yeah. Well, why change?
Well, okay, but listen to what she's saying when she says exactly. I mean, she's thinking about exactly the experience of Brittany's, the line that Brittany was born, Brittany's mom, Brittany's dad, that whole.
Yeah, but understand, that's all your improvisation.
Well, that's what I'm saying, clarity. I'm just saying,
So
clarity.
it's not exactly, it's
Of what
just
she's saying.
like, roughly.
The same timeline.
Wouldn't that be similar, or wouldn't an example be that history repeats itself? In that,
It's not exact, but it.
Right,
repeats
it's
itself.
not like Hitler was the first one to
act like.
you know,
Right,
completely
that's what
try
I'm
to
wondering,
destroy
if
and
it's
do a pretty good
exact
job
or not.
of an entire race.
It's not exact.
Because I kind of, this kind of really I mean, I like to think that, you know, consciousness is, like, we're evolving.
You are.
But other experiences begin at the beginning all the time. And what differs is their mind, body, and spirit may be different, not a lot, but the archetypical mind's going to be different.
It's just hard for us, it's hard for us to grasp how a timeline is exactly the same, is all we're saying.
Well,
It's like, it's not exactly
if
the
you've
same,
ever
it's
if
just
you've
a
ever been
basic-
in a play or seen how a play is produced, there's a script.
Mhm.
And there's always, depending on the director and the actors, there's always improvisation to the script.
Right, that's a good
It
example.
gives it flavor,
Yeah,
right,
you know,
yeah.
a unique flavor. To
But it's the same script.
It's the same
just
script.
different
I
flavors.
mean, you know, basically, you know, Death of a Salesman is virtually the same, but, you know, you may set it in 1930s, you may set it in, you know, 2005, you know, the timelines and the, you know, the people have different personalities that they display. It's the same script, but it's a completely different play.
That helps.
Yeah.
Okay? So the mind, body, and spirit, us, is what transforms. And the archetypical mind is designed as such to allow that transformation. Now what makes the archetypical mind function, the mind, body, and spirit, really the spirit, has no means to participate in the timelines without the archetypical mind. And if you think of the archetypical mind as a spacesuit, and the spirit puts on the spacesuit, and everything that it experiences is going to be through the spacesuit, and can only be through the spacesuit. So it can only touch through the gloves of the spacesuit, can only see through the visor of the spacesuit, can only hear through the visor or the helmet of the spacesuit. And that's exactly what an archetypical mind does to a spirit. Nothing can be experienced without the archetypical mind. And it's always on. It's always on whether you're incarnate or not incarnate, while you remain in the experiential densities. If you go to another solar system, you put on their spacesuit. So, one reason it's helpful to understand and know how the archetypical mind works is you know why things are as they are, because that's what your suit is telling you that you're experiencing. You can reach for whatever you want, that's your improvisation. But whatever you reach for, once you grasp it, is going to feel like what the suit tells you it will feel like.
Well, and that's why, or one of the reasons why we may do exactly the same thing, but and touch the exact same thing, but have a completely different experience because our suits are different.
No, your suits
we
are
have
exactly
the
the
same.
same.
Our
Yours
suits are
is
exactly
Your
the
suits are
same.
exactly the same. The mind, body, spirit is different.
Which is, I guess, the advantage of having a script like a timeline and then having different people explore because they have a different combination or balance between mind, body, spirit.
That's why you can use the timelines over and over again.
And the objective is to explore. So just say hypothetically you have an experience. You're going to Disney World. Okay? Well, if one person goes to Disney World, that's one perspective. If 50,000 people go to Disney World, it's the same visit to Disney World, but they're going to choose different things to see and to do and so forth. And so you got 50,000 different perspectives of technically the same experience. Disney World is just there. The timelines are just there. But everybody that goes is going to see it and experience it differently.
So it's not exactly a script per se, but more like requirements for that experience.
Well, it's pretty much the same
Because I
thing.
mean, if the script is going to Disney World, but someone can ride completely different rides and stay here longer or extend their stay. I mean,
That's
it's
all
not
just your
exactly
improvisation.
So there's a lot of improvisation.
That's your free will.
And that's why there's the infinity of experience.
It's infinite.
Yeah, there's just a lot of improvisation, more than I thought was, okay.
But you can't have any of that improvisation without the timelines and the archetypical mind.
And the more you improvise, the more you experience pain and suffering?
The more you deviate, the more, yes, the timelines are real simple. And if we just follow that, then we can stay in the moment. This is staying in the moment. But we have free will and we don't have the tendency to stay on the timeline.
Well, and that just seems kind of boring.
Yeah, but it's pain and suffering free virtually.
Right.
And the alternative is a maximum deviation.
And that's improvisation.
That's improvisation.
And that's moving away from alignment.
Yeah. Depending on how much you can stand, this is your
Chart.
pain and suffering. This is experiencing what you don't like. Where is that? I already took that off. This is experiencing what you don't like. And so as we experience what we don't like, and we figure out, gee, that hurts. You know, I've got a lot of good learning. I've learned. I'm ready for a little bit less pain and suffering, so I'm going to pay attention more to staying in the moment and be a little bit less adventuresome. In other words, you work on you. You've explored both sides. You've explored moving away from the Creator, and you are exploring moving back, going into alignment. Now, service to self, it's not that they like that. They learn to master fear and use fear to attempt to suppress the pain and suffering. Their pain and suffering is tremendous all the way up through fifth density.
I mean, they use the fear to, the energy gathered from the fear to suppress their own pain and suffering.
Yeah,
While also
But-
manipulating others to gain their energy.
yeah, but it doesn't work because it's still pain and suffering. And they'll get all the way over here to deviation and fifth density, and they've been doing this for 2.6 billion years, and say, hey, I can get back now. And so they'll decide just it's not going to get any better, and it never gets any better. I mean, there's one end point. It's unity with the Creator. And their perspective is separation from the Creator. So something's got to give. It's not likely the Creator is going to go away, or another one will appear. So they got to undo all of that stuff and go back to where they dropped out of school and start all over again.
Thank you.
But they're exploring more.
They are exploring more. And actually, they are, you can say that they are a greater pioneer in the exploration of the Creator knowing itself. Because balance is a requirement for the Creator.
And not only do they do that side, but then they have to go back and do the other side. Not only do they do service to self, but they end up doing service to others eventually.
They will eventually do service to others as well, that's correct. But
But that's like
every step further away from the Creator that they make also, well, if you imagine a ball, an elastic ball that is infinity, and if they push over here, moving away from the Creator, then they expand the entire ball. In other words, you can't move, you can't expand just one small portion of the elastic ball of
Pumping
infinity.
the air in the
So this
balloon.
side has to also.
So in
expand.
other words, it takes them even longer to get
Well, no, it just
But it
expands.
expands the creator knowing itself,
So not only are you expanding the service to self, but you're expanding the service to others.
service to others. Because the service to others doesn't have the motivation to explore moving away from the creator. That's the service to self. So they actually are experiencing greater pain and suffering, but in the course of doing that, they're expanding all of creation because there's an automatic balance. So the ball uniformly expands. As the ball harmonizes, as all the polarities harmonize, the ball begins to contract. When all of the experiences within the ball are completely harmonized, the ball will collapse and disappear, which is the end of creation. It's no longer necessary.
Can we say that we are in the contraction phase now? Or is that something else? You know, what,
I wouldn't, I don't have no idea. I know that, I do know this, I know that service, we know that service to self has expanded, explored beyond the experiential densities and has entered the lower phases of sixth density. And so by that perspective, you can say that the service to self has expanded the ball outside of the experiential densities into the beginnings of sixth density. And I presume that there's a lot farther that they could go. So I don't know that we can say emphatically that we're in the contraction phase, because the little bit that I know, we're still potentially expanding.
well, I was just referring more to the, I don't know, the singularity event and the, you know, I don't know, however many billion years it.
That's just one octave. You've got an infinite number of octaves.
Okay.
Okay? Any questions? Well, next time, why don't we get into the, or begin with the matrix category, which is the beginning category.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.